The station was old and dirty. Rust covered the walls. Strange smells filled the air. Meridian 7 was not a place for the weak or the foolish. It was a crossroads where aliens from across the galaxy came to trade, to hide, and sometimes to kill. Lieutenant sat alone in a dark corner of a cantina. He was tired. His patrol shift had ended 2 hours ago, and he wanted nothing more than a quiet drink before returning to his ship. The United Earth Defense Corps had sent him here as part of a small human delegation. Humans were new to the galaxy. Most alien species looked at them the way a person might look at an insect. Interesting, perhaps, but not important. Did not mind. He was a soldier, not a politician. His job was simple: follow orders, stay alive, go home. He raised his glass and took a sip of something that tasted like burned fruit. The cantina was full of strange creatures. A group of tall, thin beings with too many arms played a game with floating cards. A massive creature covered in scales sat at the bar, drinking from a container the size of a human child. Two figures with no visible faces whispered to each other in a language that sounded like breaking glass. Watch them all. He had learned to watch. In the military, watching kept you alive. That was when he saw the girl. She was not human. Her skin was silver like polished metal, but soft and alive. Her eyes were violet, and when the light caught them, they seemed to hold entire galaxies within their depths. She was beautiful in a way that was almost painful to look at. But what caught attention was not her beauty. It was her fear. She moved through the cantina quickly, her head down, her shoulders tight. She wore a simple gray cloak that hid most of her body. She was trying not to be seen, but 3 hooded figures followed her. They moved like hunters tracking prey, patient, silent, deadly. Set down his glass. The girl turned down a narrow corridor that led away from the main areas of the station. The 3 figures followed. No one else seemed to notice, or perhaps no one cared. On Meridian 7, people minded their own business. Getting involved in someone else's problems was a good way to end up dead. Stood up and followed. He did not know why. He did not know who the girl was or why she was being hunted. He only knew that something bad was about to happen, and he could not simply sit and drink while it did. The corridor was dark. Pipes ran along the ceiling, leaking steam and strange liquids. The air was thick and hard to breathe. Moved carefully, keeping his footsteps silent. Ahead, he could hear voices. He found them in a small loading bay. The 3 hooded figures had cornered the girl against a wall. One of them held a weapon that glowed with blue plasma energy. The girl's violet eyes were wide with terror, but she did not beg. She did not cry. She stood straight and faced her killers with dignity. "The bloodline ends here," one of the figures said. Its voice was cold and mechanical. "The Dominion will thank us for this service." "The Dominion will hunt you," the girl replied. Her voice was steady despite her fear. "My grandmother will burn your worlds to ash." The figure laughed. "Your grandmother is old and weak. The time for change has come. Your death will be the first step." The figure raised its weapon. Moved. He had no plan. He had no weapon drawn. He simply threw himself between the plasma blade and the girl. The energy burned through his shoulder like fire made of ice. Pain exploded through his body. He heard himself scream, but he did not fall. Instead, he turned his pain into fuel. His fist connected with the first attacker's throat. The creature made a choking sound and collapsed, grabbed its weapon and fired at the second figure. The plasma bolt hit its chest and it fell without a sound. The third figure tried to run but was faster. He caught its cloak, spun it around, and drove his knee into its stomach. When it doubled over, he brought his elbow down on the back of its head. 3 attackers, 4 seconds, all down. Stood there breathing hard. Blood ran down his arm from the wound in his shoulder. The pain was getting worse. He could feel something wrong inside his body, something spreading through his blood like poison. The girl stared at him with those impossible violet eyes. "You are human," she said. It was not a question. Yes, replied. His voice was rough with pain. Why did you save me? You do not know who I am. Looked at her. She was young, he realized. Perhaps 20 years old in human terms, though with aliens it was hard to tell. She was scared and alone and far from home. She reminded him of his younger sister, back on Earth, whom he had not seen in 3 years. You needed help, he said simply. The girl's eyes filled with an emotion he could not name. Wonder, perhaps, or confusion, as if she had never encountered anything like him before. I am Princess of the Dominion, she said. My empire rules 400 worlds. My grandmother is the Empress who has lived for 3,000 years. And you, a human, a stranger, have saved my life. Blinked, he knew the Dominion. Everyone knew the Dominion. They were the most powerful empire in the known galaxy. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's. Their fleets could destroy Earth in a matter of hours, and he had just saved their princess. Oh, he said. It was not a very intelligent response, but it was all he could manage. Almost smiled, but then her eyes went to his wound and her face became serious. You are hurt. The blade was poisoned. I can see it spreading through your body. She moved toward him and took his arm. Her touch was warm and gentle. My ship is hidden nearby. I have a physician who can help you, but we must hurry. Nodded. The edges of his vision were starting to blur. The pain in his shoulder was becoming a dull roar that filled his entire body. He was not sure how much longer he could stay conscious. Can you walk? He asked. Looked at him strangely. You are the one who is injured. Can you walk? Forced a small smile. I can walk as long as I need to. Let us go. They moved through the dark corridors of Meridian 7, the human soldier and the alien princess. Behind them, the bodies of the assassins lay still and silent. Ahead, the unknown waited. Did not know that this moment would change the galaxy. He did not know that his simple act of courage would reshape the destiny of his entire species. He did not know that he had just taken the first step on a path that would lead to wonders and terrors beyond imagination. All he knew was that someone had needed help, and he had helped them. For that was enough. The ship was unlike anything had ever seen. From the outside, it looked like a small trading vessel, old and unremarkable. But inside, it was a palace of light and crystal. The walls glowed with soft colors that changed as he moved. The floors were smooth as glass but warm beneath his feet. The air smelled like flowers from a world he would never visit. Barely noticed any of it. The poison was burning through his veins like liquid fire. His vision swam. His legs felt like water. He collapsed onto a soft surface that rose from the floor to catch him, and then everything went dark. When he woke, he was lying on a bed made of something that felt like clouds. The pain was gone. He lifted his hand and looked at his shoulder. The wound was closed. Only a thin white scar remained, shaped like a star. The poison was designed to kill within minutes, a voice said. You survived for almost an hour. Your species is remarkably stubborn. Turned his head. A figure stood beside his bed. It was made of pure light, shifting and flowing like a flame in human shape. Its voice was neither male nor female, but something in between. I am Calda, the figure said. I serve as the physician for Princess. I have healed your wound and removed most of the poison from your blood. Most asked. The light flickered. It was realized the equivalent of a frown. The poison has bonded with your cells at a deep level. I have slowed its progress, but I cannot remove it completely. You have approximately 2 years before it finishes its work. Lay there in silence. 2 years. He was 31 years old. He had expected to live another 50 or 60 years at least. Now he had 2. I see, he said finally. His voice was calm. Thank you for your honesty. The studied him. You do not seem upset. I'm a soldier. I knew the risks when I chose to help. Sat up slowly. His body felt strange but strong. Where is the princess? She has been waiting for you to wake. She has many questions." The door opened and entered. She had changed from her gray cloak into a flowing gown of deep blue that made her silver skin glow like moonlight. Her violet eyes searched his face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You are awake," she said. "I was worried." "I am fine. Your physician is very skilled." Sat down beside his bed. Up close, he could see that she was exhausted. There were shadows under her eyes. She had not slept while he was unconscious. "He told you about the poison," she said. "It was not a question." "Yes." "I am sorry. If I had not been on that station, if you had not followed me, you would not be dying." Shook his head. "If I had not followed you, you would be dead. I would rather have 2 years of life knowing I did something good than 60 years knowing I let an innocent person die." Stared at him. Her lips parted slightly. She looked at him as if he were some strange and impossible creature, something she had read about in stories but never believed could exist. "Among my people," she said slowly, "when someone saves the life of another, a debt is created. We call it the debt of stars. It is sacred. It cannot be broken or ignored. The one who owes the debt must repay it no matter the cost." "You do not owe me anything," said. "I owe you everything. You saved my life, a life that belongs to an empire of 400 worlds. The debt I owe you is beyond calculation. My grandmother, my court, my entire civilization will be bound by this debt until it is repaid." Did not know what to say. He had simply done what felt right. He had not expected rewards or debts or any of this. "I just wanted to help," he said. Smiled. It was a beautiful smile, but also a sad one. "That is what makes you so remarkable. You did not help me because I am a princess. You did not help me because you wanted something. You helped me because it was the right thing to do." She reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were warm and soft. "In 3,000 years of my grandmother's rule, no one has ever saved a member of the royal bloodline. You are the first, and you are human." The ship's journey took 3 weeks. During that time they talked about their worlds, their families, their hopes and fears. Told her about Earth, about its blue oceans and green forests, about the wars that had shaped humanity and the dreams that drove them to the stars. Told him about the Dominion, about its ancient traditions and complex politics, about the weight of being born royal in an empire that expected perfection. "You are different from what I expected," said one night. They were sitting in the ship's observation room, watching the stars stream past the windows like rivers of light. "What did you expect?" asked. "My teachers told me humans were primitive, aggressive, dangerous. They said your species had nothing to offer the galaxy except violence." "We can be violent," admitted. "We have done terrible things to each other and to our world, but we can also be kind. We can be brave. We can sacrifice everything for a stranger we will never see again." "Why?" asked. "Why would you do that?" Thought about the question for a long time. "Because we know what it is like to suffer," he said finally. "We know what it is like to be alone and afraid, and we do not want anyone else to feel that way, not if we can help it." Was silent. Then she moved closer to him, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her silver skin. "The galaxy has misjudged your species," she said quietly. "You are not primitive. You are not dangerous. You are something far more frightening to the established order." "What is that?" Looked at him with those violet eyes that held entire universes within them. "You are unpredictable. You are kind when others expect cruelty. You are brave when others expect cowardice. You are willing to die for people you have never met." She smiled, and there was something in that smile that made his heart beat faster. "The galaxy does not know what to do with creatures like you, and that terrifies them." The ship flew on through the endless dark between stars. Ahead, the waited. Behind, the life had known was gone forever. He did not know what the future would bring. He did not know if he would survive the politics and dangers of an alien empire. He only knew that he had done the right thing, and that was beside him, and that somehow, against all odds that felt like enough. The stars burned cold and bright outside the windows, and somewhere in the darkness, the galaxy was beginning to change. It was called, and it was the most beautiful thing had ever seen. The planet hung in space like a jewel made of light. Its surface was covered with crystalline spires that reached toward the sky, each one glowing with colors that had no names in any human language. Gardens floated in the air, suspended by forces could not understand. Rivers of liquid silver wound through valleys of purple grass. And above it all, the sky itself shimmered with engineered auroras that danced and shifted like living things. Stood at the window of ship and stared. He had grown up in a small apartment in a crowded city on Earth. He had seen poverty and pollution and the ugly side of humanity. Now he was looking at a world that seemed to have been designed by gods. "It is beautiful," he said quietly. Stood beside him. "It is my home. I was born in the central spire in a room overlooking the gardens of memory. I took my first steps on floors made of crystallized starlight." She paused. "And yet, for all its beauty is also a cage. Every step I take is watched. Every word I speak is recorded. I am a princess, but I am also a prisoner." The ship descended through the atmosphere. As they approached the surface, saw crowds of gathered below. Thousands of them, maybe millions, all with silver skin and violet eyes, all looking up at the sky. "They are here for you," said. "For me. News of your actions has spread. The entire empire knows that a human saved the life of a royal princess. They are curious. They want to see the creature that did the impossible." Stomach tightened. He was a soldier. He was comfortable with danger, but this was something different. This was attention, and attention made him nervous. The ship landed in a courtyard of white stone. Guards in silver armor formed lines on either side. Musicians played instruments that made sounds like singing crystals. And at the end of a long pathway, a throne of pure light waited. On the throne sat the oldest living being had ever seen. Empress was ancient. Her skin was silver like all, but it was thin and papery, stretched over bones that seemed as fragile as glass. Her eyes were violet, but they held a depth and weight that made feel like a child standing before a mountain. She had ruled for 3,000 years. She had watched civilizations rise and fall. She had made decisions that shaped the destiny of billions. And now she was looking at him. Walked the long pathway toward the throne. The courtiers watched him with expressions that ranged from curiosity to disgust. He was human, after all. A primitive. A creature from a young and foolish species that had barely learned to travel between stars. He stopped before the throne and did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He did not kneel. He did not grovel. He stood straight, met the Empress's ancient gaze, and inclined his head with respect, but not submission. The courtiers gasped. Several guards moved forward, their hands on their weapons. No one treated the Empress this way. No one. But raised one thin hand, and everyone stopped. "You are bold, human," she said. Her voice was like wind through dead leaves. "Either very brave or very stupid. Which is it?" "I do not know, Your Majesty," replied. "My people do not have much experience with empresses. I meant no disrespect, but I am a soldier of Earth, and I will not grovel before anyone." Silence filled the courtyard. The tension was so thick could feel it pressing against his skin. He had probably just signed his own death warrant, but he would not pretend to be something he was not. Then the Empress did something no one expected. She laughed. It was a dry, crackling sound, like paper tearing, but it was genuine laughter. "I like you, human," she said. "You are the first person in 500 years who has not bored me immediately. Come, let us discuss the matter of the debt." The court moved inside, into a throne room that made the courtyard look simple by comparison. Walls of living crystal shifted and changed. The floor showed images of distant galaxies. The ceiling was open to the sky, and the aurora danced directly overhead. settled onto her throne, stood beside her, her face carefully neutral. The courtiers arranged themselves in ranks, watching and waiting. "You saved my granddaughter's life," said. "By the ancient laws of our people, a debt of stars is owed. This debt must be repaid. Name your price, human. What do you want? Wealth beyond imagination, a planet of your own, eternal youth through our technology, all of these are within my power to grant." Thought about the offers. Wealth meant nothing to him. A planet was more than he could ever use. Eternal youth was tempting, but something about it felt wrong. He thought about Earth. He thought about his people, struggling to find their place in a galaxy that did not want them. He thought about the looks of contempt he had received from aliens who saw humanity as primitive and worthless. And then he knew what he wanted. "I want a seat," he said. The court fell silent. The Empress raised one thin eyebrow. "Explain." "Not for me, for my people, for humanity. I want a seat at the conquered of civilizations. I want recognition. I want a chance for my species to prove that we are more than what the galaxy believes us to be." The court erupted. Voices shouted in languages did not understand. Faces twisted with anger and disbelief. The conquered of civilizations was the governing body of the galaxy. No species had been granted membership in 800 years. The request was outrageous, impossible, insulting. But stood his ground. He did not flinch. He did not look away from the ancient eyes of the Empress. Raised her hand, and silence fell like a hammer. "You could have asked for anything," she said slowly. "Anything in the galaxy, and you ask for something for your people, not for yourself." "I am one man," replied. "I will be dead in 2 years. What good would wealth or power do me? But my people will live on, and they deserve a chance." Stepped forward. Her voice was clear and strong. "He saved my life without knowing who I was, without expecting any reward. If humanity can produce even one person like this, they deserve the opportunity to show what they can become." The Empress studied for a long moment. Her ancient eyes seemed to look through him, into the depths of his soul. He did not know what she saw there. Then she nodded. "Granted." The word fell like a stone into still water. Ripples spread through the court, through the empire, through the galaxy. Everything was about to change. The Empress smiled. It was a rare and terrible expression on her ancient face. "You have no idea what you have just done, human. You have thrown a rock into a pond that has been still for 1,000 years. The waves will be felt for generations." She leaned forward. "I hope your species is ready." Looked at her. Then he looked at, whose violet eyes were shining with something that might have been pride. "We are human," he said simply. "We are always ready." The Empress laughed again, that dry and crackling sound. "We shall see, human, we shall see." The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Humanity had been granted membership in the conquered of civilizations. The youngest species in known space, the primitives who had barely learned to build starships, had been given a seat at the table where the fate of the galaxy was decided. And they had earned it not through war or conquest, but because one human had saved one life. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. They had been struggling for decades, trying to prove themselves to a galaxy that looked down on them. Now, finally, they had a chance. Politicians gave speeches. Scientists talked about the doors that would open. Children looked up at the stars and dreamed bigger dreams than their parents had ever dared. But not everyone celebrated. The Dominion of Scales had hated humanity since the first contact between their species. Humans reminded them of their ancient enemies, a race they had destroyed long ago. When they heard the news, their leaders raged. They called for war. They demanded that the withdraw their support. When they refused, the Dominion began to make plans. The Pure Light Syndicate was not a government but a network of the wealthy and powerful who believed that the galaxy belonged to the old species. Humanity was a contamination, they said, a disease that needed to be cured. They began funding anti-human movements on dozens of worlds. They hired assassins. They spread lies. And within the court, the conspiracy that had tried to kill Princess still had many members. They had failed to stop the princess. Now they would stop the human who had ruined their plans. Knew the danger. He had always known. But he also knew that running and hiding would not help his people. The galaxy needed to see what humans could be. And so he left the safety of and began the hardest work of his life. He was not alone. Captain Park was a diplomat, one of the best Earth had ever produced. She was small and quiet, with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She understood politics the way understood combat. Together, they made a powerful team. Doctor was a scientist who studied alien biology. She was young and brilliant, with a gift for making friends with species that had never seen a human before. She could find common ground with creatures that breathed poison and walked on 6 legs. Her smile opened doors that armies could not break down. The three of them traveled from world to world. They met with leaders and common people. They answered questions and listened to concerns. They showed the galaxy that humans were not monsters to be feared, but people to be understood. It was not easy. On Prime was spat on by a crowd that called him a liar and a pretender. On the trading station of Vexminer was nearly killed by a bomb hidden in a gift from an anonymous sender. On the frozen world of caught a disease that almost killed her before the local healers could find a cure. But they did not give up. Slowly, minds began to change. The collective, a peaceful species that had long argued for human inclusion, offered trade agreements that would bring wealth and technology to Earth. The nomadic fleets of great wandering civilizations that traveled between stars sent emissaries who wanted to learn about human culture. The keepers of the long memory, a species that recorded the history of the galaxy, asked permission to document humanity's story. Watched it all happen and felt a strange mixture of pride and sadness. His people were rising, but he would not live to see how high they could climb. The second poisoning came 6 months into his mission. He was on a small world called Meeting with Local Leaders when he felt the familiar fire in his blood. Someone had put something in his food, something even worse than the first poison. He collapsed in the middle of a speech, caught him before he hit the ground, screamed for help. The local healers did what they could, but when woke up 3 days later, he knew the truth. 2 years had become 6 months. The physician, came to examine him. Its light flickered with what might have been sorrow. The new poison has accelerated the damage, it said. I can slow it, but I cannot stop it. I am sorry. Lay in his bed and looked at the ceiling. 6 months, less than half a year to finish what he had started. Then I had better work faster, he said. He threw himself into his mission with even more energy than before. He visited worlds he had never heard of. He shook hands with creatures that did not have hands. He ate food that made him sick and breathed air that burned his lungs and smiled through pain that would have broken weaker men. Princess watched through reports and messages. She could not leave her grandmother needed her. Her duties trapped her. But every day she thought about the human who was dying for his people, and every day the weight of that thought grew heavier. She sent what help she could, money, information, warnings about plots against him, but it was not enough. It was never enough. When news reached her that had collapsed again, on a medical station above a border world called Nexus 12, something inside her broke. She went to her grandmother's throne room. She knelt before the ancient empress. I must go to him, she said. Looked at her granddaughter with eyes that had seen 3,000 years of history. If you leave now at this moment, you will damage our alliances. The court will see it as weakness. Our enemies will use it against us. I do not care. You are a princess of the Dominion. You must care. Raised her head. Her violet eyes burned with something that made even the ancient empress pause. He is dying because of me, because he chose to save a stranger in a dark corridor on a dirty station. He asked for nothing for himself. He gave everything for his people, and he has 6 months to live because someone wanted me dead." Tears ran down her silver cheeks, glowing faintly in the light of the throne room. "I will not let him die alone. I cannot. If that makes me weak, if that damages our alliances, if that gives our enemies ammunition, then so be it. Some things are more important than politics." The Empress was silent for a long time. Then slowly she smiled. "You sound like your mother," she said softly. "She me too when it mattered. She chose love over duty, kindness over power. I was angry with her for many years." The ancient eyes grew distant with memory. "But she was right, and so are you." Waved her hand. "Go, find your human. Tell him that the Dominion stands with him. Tell him that an old empress is proud to have known him, even briefly." She paused. "And tell him that if there is any way to save him, we will find it, no matter the cost." Rose, she bowed deeply. Then she turned and ran from the throne room, faster than she had ever run in her life. Behind her, the ancient empress sat alone on her throne of light. "Chaos incarnate," she whispered to herself. "That is what humans are, and that is exactly what this tired old galaxy needs." She closed her eyes and smiled. The medical station above Nexus 12 was a small place, designed for emergencies and minor injuries. It was not equipped to handle the death of the most famous human in the galaxy, but had collapsed there, and moving him would have killed him faster. So the galaxy came to him. Ships arrived from every corner of known space. Representatives from 37 species requested permission to visit. News reporters from 100 worlds broadcast from the station's corridors. The small medical facility became the center of the universe. Lay in his bed and watched the chaos through half-closed eyes. He was tired. The poison had spread through every part of his body now. The pain was constant, a dull roar that never stopped. The physicians had done everything they could. It was not enough. Sat beside him, holding his hand. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. "The collective has announced full partnership with Earth," she said. "Our ships will have access to their trade routes. Our scientists will study in their universities. Our children will grow up knowing that the galaxy is open to them." Smiled weakly. "That is good. The nomadic fleets have invited human families to join their wanderings. They say we remind them of themselves when they were young." She squeezed his hand. "The keepers of the long memory have begun a new archive. They are calling it the human story. They say it will be one of the great stories of the galaxy." "We have good stories," said. His voice was barely a whisper now. "We just needed someone to listen." Appeared in the doorway. Her eyes were bright with tears. "There are more visitors," she said. "Hundreds of them. They are waiting in the corridors, in the docking bays, in ships outside the station. They all want to see you, to thank you." Tried to sit up and failed. The effort left him gasping. "Help me," he said. "I want to see them." They brought them in one by one, two by two, group by group, creatures of every shape and size. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no bodies at all, just floating lights or clouds of colored gas. They came from worlds had visited and worlds he had never heard of. They spoke languages he understood and languages that sounded like music or thunder or rain on metal. And they all said the same thing. "Thank you." A young whose father had helped free from prison knelt beside his bed and wept. An old wanderer pressed a gift into his hands, a small stone from a world that had been destroyed 1,000 years ago. A being of pure light, similar to the, sang a song that had no words but made everyone who heard it cry. Accepted each visitor with grace and gratitude. He was dying, but he was not sad. How could he be sad when he could see so clearly what his life had meant? Then the doors opened one final time and walked in. She was not a princess in that moment. She was not royal or composed or dignified. She was a young woman whose heart was breaking, and she did not care who saw. She crossed the room in 3 steps and fell to her knees beside his bed. You should not be here, whispered. The political cost. I do not care about politics, she said fiercely. Tears ran down her silver cheeks. I care about you. She took his hand. Her skin was warm against his cold fingers. He could feel her pulse, fast and frightened. I wanted to save you, she said. We searched for cures on 1,000 worlds. We consulted physicians from species that died before my grandmother was born. We did everything. Her voice broke. And it was not enough. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Looked at her. Even now, even at the end, she was beautiful. But more than that, she was kind. She was good. She had her grandmother and her court and 3,000 years of tradition just to be here with him. You have nothing to be sorry for, he said. I made my choice. I would make it again. Why, she asked. It was the same question she had asked on her ship so long ago. Why did you save me? You did not know who I was. You did not know any of this would happen. Why? Thought about the question. He thought about his life, about the choices he had made, about the man he had tried to be. Because you needed help, he said. That is all, that is everything. Someone needed help and I could help them. What else is there? Stared at him with those impossible violet eyes. Then she leaned down and kissed his forehead, gently, like a blessing. They believe that some souls are too vast for one lifetime, she whispered. They believe these souls return again and again in different forms to shape the universe. I do not know if this is true, but I will spend my reign looking for you. In every face, in every world, in every corner of the galaxy. I will look for the soul that saved me. Smiled, I hope you find it. The stars outside the window were bright. So bright. Had always loved the stars. When he was a boy, he would lie on the roof of his building and stare up at them for hours, wondering what was out there, dreaming of adventures and possibilities. Now he knew. The universe was vast and strange and full of wonders. It was also full of people who needed help, full of chances to do good. His eyes began to close. The pain was fading now, replaced by a soft warmth that spread through his body like sunlight. Lieutenant, a voice said. It was the Empress speaking through a holographic projection that shimmered beside his bed. You have cost me greatly. Alliances broken, enemies emboldened, the careful balance of 1,000 years disrupted. Opened his eyes one last time. I am sorry, he said. The ancient Empress shook her head. Do not be, I find I do not regret my decision. Your people are chaos incarnate. They are unpredictable and strange and infuriating. She smiled, and for a moment she looked almost young. The galaxy needed chaos. It had grown stagnant, comfortable. Your species has reminded us what it means to be alive. Thought about Earth, about his home, his people, his species. They were imperfect. They made mistakes. They hurt each other and themselves. But they also loved fiercely. They dreamed boldly. They reached for the stars even when everyone told them they would fail. We are human, he said softly. We are always reaching. Then his eyes closed, and he was gone. 100 years later on Earth, children from a dozen species played in a memorial garden. They ran through flowers that had been brought from worlds across the galaxy. They laughed and shouted in a dozen languages. They did not care about the differences between them. They were just children, playing in the sun. In the center of the garden stood a statue of a man with kind eyes and a soldier's bearing. The plaque at the base read, Lieutenant. He saw a stranger in danger and did not look away. In doing so, he changed everything. On Empress the bridge builder ruled with wisdom and compassion. In her throne room hung a worn military jacket, preserved under stasis glass. She looked at it every day and remembered the human who had given everything for a chance. And in the memorial garden on Earth, a young boy with silver-tinged skin and violet eyes watched the other children play. He did not know why he felt drawn to this place. He did not know why the statue seemed so familiar, so important. He was only 10 years old. He knew nothing of past lives or ancient debts or the stories that shaped the universe. But when he reached out and touched the cold stone hand of the statue, he smiled. And somewhere across the vast distances between stars, across the boundaries between life and death, across the endless mystery of existence, something answered. The galaxy was different now, better, more hopeful, and it had all started with one human who saw a stranger in danger and did not look away. That was the legacy of. That was the legacy of humanity. That was the legacy of one life, lived well.